Hey guys, welcome back to the Gentleman's Garage, and today's a really special day. A lot of you guys have been commenting and asking, how did I get where I'm at in life? You know, how to become successful or, get to a point where I could afford the car collection that we've been sharing with you guys. This is actually the video I've been waiting to make. The biggest reason why I agreed to do a YouTube channel was not only to be able to share the cars on a much larger scale, because, when we do get to attend some local car shows, the thrill's always being able to see how it lights up other people. They see a really cool car, it hopefully inspires them, and then I could tell them a little bit about my story, and hey, who knows, the next big entrepreneur their moment could be sparked right then and there. And doing the YouTube channel allows me to do that, but obviously on a much bigger scale. For me, it was a car that inspired and really changed my life. I think I was about 8 years old, and I was at a little fair rodeo thing. We're here in Texas, so we do rodeos. And they had a little fair there. It was one of those little games where you throw the darts, pop the balloon, and you win a picture. I won, I got the poster of the Countach. And that picture on the wall became this big inspiration for me. I grew up on a farm. It's now become a apartment complex. It was sold many, many years ago. But I want to take you guys on that journey. But at the time, I lived on that farm with my grandparents. And so all I'd ever seen were Ford and Chevrolet trucks and tractors. I mean, that's really all, ever saw. I'd never seen anything like a Countach or a Ferrari or any sort of Lamborghini or Ferrari at that point in my life ever. And you remember, this is, early 80s. There was no internet, so our access to information, things like that, you just didn't have it. So if you didn't see it around locally, you just didn't see it. So that Countach became this big inspiration for me on the wall, because to that point, I didn't even know that there were that levels of success in life. And for me, I looked at that car and I just thought, there's people out there that can afford to have cars like this or other things that go along with that caliber of success. And I figured, why not me? Why can I not do that? And that became the spark of my drive. And I just figured, if someone else can achieve that level of success, so can I. I wasn't gonna let anything hold me back. It may have even been a little bit of, blind confidence, I don't know. But I just knew that I had to pursue that. And that was the genesis of what you see here today with all the cars that you see in our collection and the life that I've been fortunate enough to live. And it was a hell of a road, a hell of a journey to get there. And today, I'm gonna bring you guys on that journey. We're gonna hop in the Countach. I now actually own the Countach. Is the exact one that was in the poster on my wall. And I now actually own it in the flesh today. It's definitely my life full circle moment. So we're gonna hop in the Countach, and I'm gonna take you guys, we're gonna see the property where the farm was where I grew up, tell you a little bit more about that story, and literally show you how I went. We had a trailer house on that farm, and so I literally went from trailer house to hypercars. Here we go. All right, first question.
What do you do for a living?
What do I do for a living? I own a labor force management company. It's called Effex Management Solutions. I was going to college. I was at SFA, Stephen F. Austin in Nacogdoches, Texas, small town. And I actually only needed another 21 hours to graduate. So maybe a semester, and it's hard not to do that in the Countach. So I had about another semester, maybe a couple of courses during the summer to graduate. So anyway, I was very close to graduating. One of the things I learned about myself in college is I get bored very easily. And being in a small town, it really was not the best choice for me to go to school. And I got suspended from SFA. Stephen F. Austin is a state university. So if you get suspended from a state university, you are suspended from all state universities in Texas. So there I was. So I had to go home, and that obviously wasn't going well. My dad was extremely disappointed in me for getting kicked out of school, essentially, and obviously for good reason. I needed to get a job. Long story short, I needed to get a job. I was interviewing for a bartender position at a TGI Fridays. You can't make this up. And the goal was to get a job bartending so that I'd be working evenings, serve my suspension for a whole semester, and go back to college. That was originally the plan. And so I was going for my follow-up interview with the GM of the TGI Fridays, and I needed to get a haircut, so I went to a Supercuts. It was in a little strip mall, and I'm getting a haircut. My very close high school friend was with me, and I'm kind of at a very low point in life trying to figure out what am I going to do with myself. I can't believe I got kicked out of school. I hated college with a passion, that's for sure, but I was going to try to go back and gut it out and all this other kind of stuff. Next door to the Supercuts was a staffing agency. And I didn't know anything about staffing agencies. I knew nothing about how that worked at all. And but my friend kept telling me, hey, listen, if you go in there, they can get you a job. And I'm like, listen, man, I don't have time for some temporary job. I need a full-time job. I got to figure out what I'm going to do with my life. And so I finished the haircut, had time left before the interview, and I go into this staffing agency. They ended up hiring me to do sales for the staffing agency. And I knew nothing about the business. The training was literally, this is back 1998, so internet was very, very early at the time. So it was literally, hey, here's a phone book. Start calling these companies and see if they need any temporary staffing needs. That was it. And so there's 9 of us in a room, and we're smiling and dialing and beating the hell out of the phone. And that's how I got started in the staffing industry. But after about 3 months of being in that role, I was doing really well. I could sell for sure, and that much I knew. I knew I could sell, and I was doing really well, and I was having fun, but I started really getting a better understanding of the business itself, and then that's where I had the idea of my business model, which I thought would bring a lot more value to my clients' businesses. Business model that I believed in a lot more, because I knew that I could help my clients' businesses be better, be more efficient, be more profitable, and I could help them be more competitive in their industry. But long story short, I ended up starting my own company. We've got a very unique business model, but it's something I'm very, very proud of. It allowed me to go from being just a vendor to my clients to a true strategic partner, and it's something that I'm very proud of. And every business deal I had today is built off relationships. And I'm very proud of that. It allows me to feel really good about the value and service that I bring to my clients' business, develop some lifelong partnerships, and many times friendships with all my clients.
How is your business different than others in your industry?
I heard Warren Buffett say one time, I was probably 20, 21 years old, and somebody asked him, what do you look for in businesses that you invest in? So it's actually very simple. I look for companies with a clear competitive advantage in their industry. And that's always resonated with me. And that's exactly kind of one of the sparks that made me look at the staffing industry and try to figure out how can I build a company that wasn't like every other staffing agency. And now that I'm on the other end of that, and I'm now in a position to invest, and there's other businesses that I own myself, I will not get involved in something if that company does not have a clear competitive advantage in its industry. And so with our company, and we're the only company with our business model, we don't do temporary staffing at all. I'm in the staffing industry, but we don't do temporary staffing. We only partner with companies that have a need for a very large volume labor force, a couple hundred employees or more, and we become the permanent employer of those people. And it's tremendous because we are very, very good at being in the people business, essentially. And that allows us to actually not only reduce our clients' labor spend, but because of the efficiencies that our company brings to our client, we're able to offer better wages and benefits and long-term career advancement for the employees. So it's the one thing I absolutely love about my business, and that's what makes us so different than anybody else in our industry is, like I said, we bring true value. We actually make our clients more profitable, more competitive, and a lot of that money gets reinvested back into the employees, and now we're able to offer the labor force better benefits, better pay, and a better career, long-term career opportunity. So it's a situation where absolutely everybody benefits and wins from the partnership. It's the one thing I'm the most proud of.
Why did you choose the field you're in?
I definitely did not choose the field that I'm in, that is for sure. As I said, I literally walked into a staffing agency one day looking for a job, and rather than putting me out on an assignment at one of their clients, they hired me as an internal salesperson, and I'm forever changed my life. So it's and that's what I try to tell people all the time you know, opportunities are always there. You just gotta, have your eyes wide open to look at them. You know, had I kept tunnel vision and stayed focused on what I thought I would do for a living, I would have never seen the opportunity that has now become the business that I own today.
What separates the guy earning $1 million a year from the guy earning $10 million a year?
I would actually say the guy earning $1 million a year can very easily be the guy making $10 million a year. I see guys, and I see people in general, ladies as well, that are entrepreneurs. They own a company. They're doing very well, making about $1 million a year, and that's fantastic. But the reality of it is that business will never be bigger than that one person. They're kind of the nucleus of everything in that company. Everything runs through them. And some people need that. Some people need that sense of control. And I don't mean that in a bad way. A lot of people, when they don't feel like they've got their hand on every single little decision being made on the day-to-day of the business, it gives them a sense of anxiety and fear because they're uncertain of what's going on in the business. And that's fine, but you can't scale that. You absolutely have got to build a business that's bigger than any one person. And with that, that means you've got to build a fantastic team around you. And they're gonna have strengths that you don't have. And that's when you've got a real dynamic with your executive team and your entire leadership team for that matter. You've got to be able to build a team and reproduce that can repeat success over and over and over again. And you surround yourself with people that have strengths in areas that you don't have. That is how you build something very long lasting.
When did you realize you needed to hire your first employee? And when you did, what was their role?
I actually hired my very first employee right away when I started my own company. I had just enough money saved up to cover their salary for about 6 months. And that's really about all we had. We were definitely on a shoestring budget, and I definitely had to sell some business and get clients very quickly. But I knew I needed to be able to focus on growing the business, on the business side of it, and from a sales perspective. I hired a guy that we had worked together before I started my own company. He was a pure operations guy, absolutely brilliant, and very, very passionately bought in to helping make the company that I was starting successful. I talk about scaling a business all the time. It really is the differentiator of people, growing something substantial. They've got to be able to scale. And everybody's got to have different roles. You can't do everything. And that was always my goal. I always wanted to build a company that was bigger than me, bigger than any one single person. So starting out right away, I knew what the goal was in mind. I had an idea of what the scale of the company was going to look like one day. Obviously, I couldn't start out there day one. So I started out knowing that I needed somebody that could help execute on the operational side of the business from day one.
How do I get to where you are?
First of all, I will warn people, I always warn people, being an entrepreneur is not for everyone. It will take its toll on anybody, even when you're successful. Being an entrepreneur is literally one of the most difficult things you'll ever do because you're starting something that doesn't exist. You're literally creating it. That will take a level of drive and determination and perseverance that very few people really have. So many people, they see the end result. They see where guys are at, like me today, and they see, the cars and the lifestyle and all those things, and I get it. But that's not the story of how you got there. This is it. This is it. This is what used to be the farm that I lived on. So, wow, it's just the craziest thing to see this property all developed now. So my parents got divorced when I was 5. And my parents were very, very young when they had me. My mom was 16, my dad was 18. I always like to say babies having babies, if you will. Make sure I'm not blocking this driveway here. With that comes not some of the best life choices, and I don't fault them at all. I mean, they were just so young, right? I ended up living with my grandparents. They had a farm here in Houston, and we were horse and cow merchants. So we would buy and sell horses and cows. That's what they did to make money. And thank you. And it was a humble way to live for sure. We were on the welfare assistance programs. I got the free lunch program at school. Absolutely hated it because I had to stand in line where all the kids lined up with their free lunch. and you had your little lunch card to get your free lunch and whatnot. And I hated having to rely on assistance from any sort of government agency. I think it probably drove a lot of my sense of independence that I have today. It definitely put a very strong sense of drive in me. I ended up living with them on this farm. I lived here till I was 12 years old. And at that point, my mom had moved back in with us. There still wasn't a habit of good life choices being made. And the situation really, I knew from a very young age, it wasn't the best. I knew I wanted to be somebody one day, and I knew that I was not in a situation that was gonna give me the stability of at home that I needed. When my mom and dad, before they got divorced, they had 2 kids, me and my sister. She's 2.5 years younger than me. I absolutely love my sister. She's an amazing human being today. One of my favorite people on the planet, quite honestly. I wanted to go live with my dad at 12 years old. I was a pretty independent kid, very headstrong kid, and I made that decision on my own to go live with my dad. It was very difficult to leave behind, my grandparents. My grandfather had passed away the year before, so it was my grandma, it was my mom, and my sister. I think my mom was remarried at the time to a guy that I just had zero for. So again, it was kind of a lot more of just not good life choices going on. And my dad had also gotten remarried, but my dad, had a very stable life. My dad is a small business owner as well, and I'm very proud of him. He's done a great job with the company that he started, still runs it to this day. And he'd gotten remarried, they'd had 3 kids, so I have 3 half siblings that I love very, very much. I'm very close with as well. But it was very difficult to leave and make that decision, but I had to make a decision for myself at that point. I knew that I wanted to do something and be something in my life, but I was always having to deal with the instability of my home life at that time, and I had to choose a better environment, and I did that at 12 years old. And it was very difficult to leave behind what I had known. The biggest decision was the hardest part of that decision was leaving my sister. My sister did not want to go live with my dad. She wanted to stay with our grandma at the time, and that's what my sister did, so I had to leave my sister behind. She and my mom and my grandma eventually moved away. Actually, very shortly after I moved in with my dad, I would say within 3 or 4 months, they moved away, and I lost contact with them for many years. And I didn't see them for about 10 years, quite honestly. And I left the farm behind too. But living on this farm, it wasn't all doom and gloom, don't get me wrong. I mean, I was a little boy, and we had 44 acres here. We had horses and cows, we had multiple pastures. There was always, I had a little dirt bike. I loved to go ride dirt bikes out on the farm. And, there was always a lot of work to be done for sure. Every day you got to feed these horses and cows. And I've been breaking horses since I was about 8, 9 years old. And like I said, there was always something to do, a chore to be done, a lot of work. We had a garden, so you're always dealing with that. I had a lot of chickens, so every day you got to get the eggs from the chicken. And we had a milk cow, so we milked the cow. I mean, it was farm living to its fullest, for sure. The school I went to was right up the road. This is the Aldine area of Houston. It's a very, very crime-ridden area. It was no different then, for sure. In fact, this zip code is one of the most dangerous zip codes in the entire state of Texas. You can imagine what the school was like that I went to here. In fact, the area is so bad, they tore the school down, I don't know, about 10 years ago, I think, and relocated it. All of this was just, a bunch of old farmland up and down this road here. It's kind of crazy to see. A lot of it's empty, so I'm assuming that obviously these people passed away and nothing's been done with the property. Obviously, this property got bought up and developed into an apartment complex, which is just wild. But what's crazy is I was looking on the map coming here this morning, and you could see on the map the exact outline of the property. So they built an apartment complex here, but they didn't change the outline of the property, so it's kind of crazy. Left here, and why not? My dad's house, obviously doesn't live there anymore, but it's only maybe about 10 minutes away. So why don't we go there? Actually, a lot of these old houses are still here. That's amazing to see some of these old houses. It's crazy because we were so poor. I used to think these were really, really nice homes because it was so much nicer what we had. We had a trailer house on that lot, on that property. And that's all we had there. The floors were actually rotting through in a lot of areas, and so we used to, the lids from the Folgers coffee cans, the big tin lids, and we would use that to patch holes in the floor. It was, it's pretty crazy. It's something to see looking back. So right down the road, there used to be an old bakery here called Grimes Bakery. Absolutely amazing bakery. I believe it closed down many years ago. This is where the school was. We used to, I could walk from that apartment complex to where the school was, and they literally tore it down. It's just an empty lot now. That actually used to be an old restaurant. That old house, somebody used to have it as a restaurant. Crazy, I haven't been down this way in, God, 30 years. I moved in with my dad when I was 12, and I turned 13 that summer, and I lived with him until I went off to college at 17, so I lived with my dad for about 4 years. And like I said, my dad's a small business owner, and that's really where I learned a lot about scaling a business, because my dad never, in his business, he does well for himself. Like I said, I'm very proud of my dad, but we own very different types of businesses. And he's exact example of what I was talking about, where you can be very successful as a business owner, but I don't know that I would call that, I would call that more self-employed, right? Because everything runs through you. So you've created a company that allows you to be self-employed. And again, I'm not faulting it at all. There's a lot to be said for people that they choose to be self-employed. The business is only going to be that big, and it doesn't get to be too much for them. And they live a great life, and it's a lot simpler way to be. So it's definitely, there's no right or wrong. It's just a matter of what you want for yourself, right? And like I said, my goal was never, and you know, and I've talked about this before, I've never chased money. I chased the expectations of myself, what I thought I could achieve, what I thought my potential was. And I still chase that to this day, to build something that would, that I could scale to the level that would be generational. My company most certainly has that ability to this day. You know, that company does not need me whatsoever anymore. This building here was, I mean, a lot of these buildings have been here since I was a kid, which is just mind-blowing to see they're still here. This was just like a market of some sort back then. I don't know, junkyard, or, yeah, it looks like a chop shop. This trailer house is very similar to the trailer house that was on my grandparents' property. Very, very similar to it.
Was there ever a point in time where you felt like, all right, this is my life, this is what it is? And if so, how did you get past that? Or have you never felt like that?
I never felt that way. I never felt desolate. You know, again, you know, it's looking at this and you can see where I grew up and how I grew up, and you get a good sense of it. I never felt like a victim, and I never felt desolate. I never felt hopeless, ever. I've never felt that way. I was always looking to the future, always believed in myself. I knew I would do something. I knew I would make something of myself. So I never felt that way, never once. I've never felt sorry for myself, ever. I always just, hey, this is a situation, and how do we make the most of it, and where are we going from here? That's always been my mindset, 100%. This little convenience store has been here literally since I was a kid, and it's still there. This is my dad's old neighborhood here. So we'll cut through here. Wow, all the houses, these are still the same. Wow, this is it. Yeah, so it's what, you know, less than 10 minutes from where my grandparents' farm was to where my dad lived in this old neighborhood here. All these houses are still original. This used to be Miss Potts' house over here, and this was our street here. Up here on the right is the house that we used to have. This was all of our property. My dad, as his business kept growing, would buy up more lots as some of the people would pass away and those lots would come available. And yeah, that is my dad's old house. Pretty crazy. Absolutely crazy. Over here was my great-grandmother's house. So literally right across the street from my dad's house. Not only lived my great-grandmother, but I'm gonna back up a little bit here. And my grandmother, Gracie, my dad's mom, this was her house right here. they've actually done a decent little job with it. It kind of looks cute, actually rather cute. I actually have a family member that lives there now. He took over the house when my grandmother passed away. But yeah, so this is where I moved to. Sorry?
Where was your room?
Okay, top right-hand corner, upstairs. That window you see right there, that was my bedroom.
Right next to the chimney?
Yep, exactly, right next to the chimney. There's a garage apartment you see over the garage. My dad had his offices there for years and years and years. My dad actually bought this house when he married my mom at 18 years old, and he lived there. My dad lived here until I think I was 19 or 20. I was off at college when my dad bought a new house and finally moved. But yeah, he lived here for a very, very long time, from 18 to, let's see, I don't know, he'd have been, I don't know, I guess 50 or so, I'm guessing. Yeah, so a long time. But yeah, so moved in with my dad, and like I said, you know, talking about different types of businesses and talking about an entrepreneur versus what I would say is someone who's self-employed. Again, make a great life. I am not knocking it at all. You know, certainly what I've chosen to do is extremely difficult. And there were times for sure that I thought, God, you know, I was already making a nice living. It was a nice small company, you know, in the early years. And, you know, is that enough? You know, did I really need to strive for this vision that I had in my mind? But I just knew I couldn't let up on the belief in myself that I believed I could do it. But, you know, living with my dad, watching him run his business, and he still runs it to this day. You know, everything goes through him. He runs the show, and that works for him. That's his formula, and that works for him. And that really set it in my mind about I wanted to scale something much larger, much bigger. So I'm very grateful that I got to see how a self-employed person runs a small business, because it gave me a lot of insight into what I wanted for myself in building what is now a large corporation. But you know, so like I said, I grew up in that regard. You learn to overcome adversity for sure on a daily basis. You learn a lot of perseverance, but I'll tell you something else. You learn to have a lot of perspective in life, and you learn a lot about yourself. You learn a lot about human beings in general, people. There's any kind of if you're ever going to own or run a business. Oh, this car is so cool. Oh, the old Countach. God, I love this thing. You know, if you're going to own a business, you've got to be great with people. And I don't think you can be great with people if you can't relate to people. And, you know, growing up the way I did, I learned to relate to people from all walks of life. Been there, done that. I've seen it. I've lived it. It allows me to relate to people and connect with people on a very real level. And I'm eternally grateful for that. It was cool to take you guys and show you kind of where I grew up. You know, a lot of people always talk about, oh, I grew up poor and I'm rags to riches. And many people are. A lot of people exaggerate that story. So I wanted to leave no doubt whatsoever and actually take you guys and show you firsthand where I actually grew up. So you know my story is 100% true, 100% accurate. And I want you to see, hey, you may live in a place that's very similar to where I grew up. And just remember, where you come from is not indicative of where you got to end up in life. You have a choice in life. You choose your path. You choose your future. And so long as you got the perseverance and drive to see it through, it's not going to be easy. It's not all sunshine and rainbows, absolutely not. But if you really want it and you're really willing to persevere, it doesn't matter where you come from. There's nowhere you can't end up in life. There's nothing you can't achieve in life.
What are 3 factors that you believe were fundamental and necessary to get where you are?
First of all, belief in yourself. Confidence is the key to everything in life. Everything. You've got to believe you can do something before you actually do it. There's no such thing as achieving something, then believing in yourself. No, it doesn't work that way. You got to believe in yourself. You know, Michael Jordan believed he was going to be the greatest basketball player of all time. He believed that before he actually became the greatest basketball player of all time. So you got to have confidence in yourself, 100%. Number 2, and I talk about this a lot, and I can't overstate it, relentless drive. Absolutely relentless drive. You're going to go through the gauntlet of hell when you're an entrepreneur and you're starting out. That's another thing I cannot overstate. No one's path to success as an entrepreneur was smooth and easy or quick and overnight. It's not real. So relentless drive. And number 3, you gotta have vision. You gotta have vision to see the opportunities, to see something right in front of you, and it's right in front of everyone else, but you're the only person that really sees that as an opportunity. The business I have today, the opportunity was sitting there the whole time, and so many other people in my industry could have gone this direction. For whatever reason, they never had that vision for that opportunity in this industry.
If you could do one thing differently, what would it be?
Wow, one thing differently. You know, I have zero regrets in life. I certainly had failures. I've certainly had setbacks. God knows I've made my share of mistakes. I still make mistakes to this day. But I don't know that I would change any of them because, as I just talked about, I take responsibility for anything that goes wrong in my life. And sometimes maybe it really isn't my fault, but what could I have done different to prevent that failure or that setback from happening? And without those failures, those setbacks, and without the way I grew up, without getting kicked out of college, all those things had to happen for me to have the life that I have today, to have the wisdom that I have today, to have the life lessons that I have today. I had to experience all those things. I had to experience those failures, those setbacks. I had to have the childhood that I had, growing up. That instability most certainly influenced a relentless drive. I was a little boy that just couldn't stand the situation I was in. Couldn't stand living like that. The financial instability, the life instability, all the crazy things that were happening around me because of, the people's life choices that they were making and how that influenced me and my sister. And it's another situation where I could have played the victim. I was a kid. I didn't have any say in the matter, in the decisions that people were making around me. They most certainly directly impacted me and affected me for sure. But even then, I would look at that as things that I will never do. I'll give you a good example. I've never even smoked a joint in my life. I've never done any type of drug in my life. I didn't need to. I had other people around me that were messing with drugs growing up, and I saw firsthand how that affected their life and where they ended up. And so I didn't need to experiment with drugs. There was no experiment needed for me. I knew exactly where drugs will lead you, and I was directly affected by people that were making those kind of choices. And so I looked at it as like, hey, that's a free life lesson. That's a mistake that I don't have to make and pay the price for in life. And I looked at a lot of things that people around me were doing at the time. What would I do differently? I truly have no regrets. I truly have no regrets in life.
What are the proper steps to starting and scaling your own company?
That's a really tough question to answer because there's so many different types of businesses, right? I will say though, number one, make sure that whatever it is you're starting, you can, in 30 seconds or less, clearly articulate how your company is going to have a clear competitive advantage in this industry. You don't want to be what I call a Me Too company. ABC company does that. Yeah, so do we. Me too. Then you're all competing for the exact same thing, and you don't really have any value add to distinguish yourself from another company. Number two, I would definitely say join a group of other entrepreneurs and collaborate with them. I didn't do that in my early days. I really just kind of took everything on my own and took it on the chin. And I've been fortunate enough to be in some of those groups, obviously now more from an advisor standpoint. And it's a great opportunity. For me, I get to share a lot of my life, or business lessons, I should say. And you know, I would say definitely do that, because you're gonna get a lot of great advice from people that have been there before. And third, if you're gonna scale a business, it's gonna require big funding. And you definitely need to start establishing relationships with banks as early as possible. And the reality of it is, just like my business, you know, you're starting out, you don't have a healthy balance sheet. You don't have a balance sheet at all. And so you've got to build that. And getting relationships with bankers, and those bankers getting to see you build that business, and they get to see you grow it, and they get to see how you make good, sound business decisions. They will begin to take on a little bit more risk when your company's younger. Get those relationships going early. They will benefit you immensely, because you'll be able to get the funding and the backing that you need from a banker for you to scale that business, for sure. We are at the corporate office of my business, of Effex. I bought this building about 14 years ago, kind of crazy. And it's pretty amazing to pull up here. Not only is this the corporate office, you know, we're spread all over the country. We're in, I think, 16 different states, 41 different locations. But this is the brains, the hub, if you will, of my company. And it's really cool to pull up here. I've got people, most of the people that work in that building have been with the company for many years. I'm very close with all of them. Very grateful for the job that they do, the success that they bring for the company, and of course for themselves. And it's awesome to pull up here. And this is my building. I own this thing. It's a really great feeling. So I figured you get to see 3 stops. Childhood, where I lived until I was 12. Then I moved in with my dad, and now here we are at our corporate office. And I guess the final stop will be back at the garage, where you get to see everything come full circle and where we are today.
At what net worth did you feel comfortable buying your first Lamborghini?
That is an excellent question. By the way, give a little love to Anthony in the comments below for compiling all the questions, doing all the filming, doing all the editing, and then posing the questions today. And actually this video was his idea as well, so all props to Anthony. So at what net worth did I feel confident enough buying my first Lamborghini? I was 28 years old. At the time, the company was probably making about $3.5 million a year, something like that. I don't really know what my actual net worth was at the time. If you're a business owner, it really comes down to cash flow, you know, to take, I don't know, a couple $100,000 or whatever it was that I paid for the car at the time out of the business, take that out of circulation that's making the company money every day. You know, cash flow is the fuel for a business. It's got to have the fuel to run and grow. And when you own a business like mine, you carry very large receivables. It takes a lot of money to bankroll that company just from Monday to a Friday because of all the receivables you got to carry and your operational expenses as well. So it was really a matter of cash flow. And I was finally in a situation where I was able to take that amount of cash out of play and put it into something that I would, you know, obviously love and enjoy. It was probably the first real big reward for myself for all that I'd done and worked through and overcome and sacrificed for. Because, you know, listen, going back to cash flow, and really I think a really good way to answer that question is, you know, I went about 19 months without paying myself, just lived off of a savings that we had at the time, and it wasn't a whole lot. If you guys remember the Coinstar machines, and I don't know if they still have them in the grocery stores, but they most certainly did back then, because we would budget our money so tightly that we would only give ourselves money once a month, pay our bills, and then this is what we had to spend on a weekly basis, and we would make it to the next month because I knew exactly how much we had to cash flow ourselves while I was building up cash flow in the business and running and growing it. I couldn't afford to take any money out. And so we used to gather up our change every weekend from, you know, just going and doing it. Back then you still paid cash for a lot of things. And we would go to the Coinstar machine, cash it in and turn it into actual cash again. And we would use that as part of our budget. It's really a matter of cash flow. And it's when your company gets to a point where you can take whatever the dollar amount is for something you want to reward yourself with, you can take that out of play, out of the business, and not negatively affect or choke the cash flow of the business.
What is your favorite part of driving the collection?
Great question. I have to say the answer to that question is very straightforward. It's the F40 for me. There's no doubt about it. That car is so exhilarating to drive. It's feather light. What's that, 1,200 kilograms, and it is an absolute beast to drive. No ABS, no traction control, no stability control, no power steering, no nothing. It's just you, a feather light car, a tremendous platform, gated manual gearbox, and a crazy twin turbo V8 that just, when those turbos come on boost, it's absolutely ballistic. And no matter how many times you punch the accelerator in that car, I giggle every single time those turbos kick in. It's absolutely insane to drive. That's all our questions. So thank y'all very, very, very much for posing the questions, asking, and really even caring about my background, how I got here. Again, the whole point of this YouTube channel, yeah, I'm getting to have fun with one of my biggest passions in life, which is cars for sure. Watches is most certainly another one. We'll start talking more about watches in the near future. But the biggest issue is that I'm able to share it with a much broader audience. Took you guys along today in the Countach. The Countach was the first car that really inspired me. That car was on my wall until I went off to college. So to finally have it here in the collection is most certainly a dream come true, but it was the first revelation I'd ever seen of real wealth, that there was real levels of wealth out there and to go for it. And so I hope you guys got to see and enjoy my background, where I come from, how I grew up, and how I ended up here. It's not magic, it's not by accident, and it's certainly not handed to me, that's for sure. I'm so grateful that I grew up that way because I could not be the man that I am today. I couldn't be the father I am today. I couldn't be the businessman that I am today or the husband that I am today without growing up and learning so much about myself and people and life and to be grateful and thankful, and that no one's gonna hand you a damn thing, and you gotta work, and you gotta work hard for it. But if you do and you persevere and you stay driven and stay focused, there's nothing you can't do and achieve and enjoy. And I hope to hear comments below about how you guys have either already achieved that dream or how this video, my story, has helped to inspire you to go after your dreams.